Hi, I'm Simon Hartley.
And I'm Helen Martin.
Welcome back to Pep Talks. Helen, it's just you and me today. This is our little Friday fireside chat, really to pick up on the challenges that we're seeing at the moment, because I can see this, the challenges particularly, evolving really, really rapidly. What are you seeing at the moment? What have you seen them in the last week or so?
Well, I think the new buzzword is WFH, working from home.
Yes,
I think we've
absolutely.
seen so much out there, so much written about it, so many tips and tricks on how to do it. And I think this week really that's on everyone's mind because everybody is now working from home. So that has really created a situation whereby we're all looking at that and thinking about it, and actually that virtual world. What are you seeing with the leaders that you're working with?
Yeah, as you and I have chatted about a couple of times before, the mental emotional dimension of this, I think, is enormous. I was chatting to some leaders this morning. They are senior leaders in a big corporation, and I'm seeing a sort of a polarization. And I think actually this is a sort of microcosm of society, to be honest. The novelty's starting to wear off. That initial shock value starting to wear off. And actually I'm seeing a polarization. Some people who became kind of energized by this and put their foot on the gas and have been fueled by adrenaline are actually starting to run out of gas. They're actually starting to feel exhausted now. And one of the things that we were chatting about is the need to recognize this early, because if you keep going at this pace for another couple of weeks, you're just going to burn out.
Yes.
We've got another group on the other side who are starting to become a bit bored. And I know, having chatted to some friends of mine as well, who are off work, they can't work, they've painted the house now, they've watched the box sets on Netflix, all of that sort of stuff, and they're starting to feel a little bit bored. And actually what they're running out of is meaning and purpose.
Yes.
So I can see that there are some challenges that are just starting to emerge, and they're likely to compound over the next few weeks. I said to this group this morning, now's a really good time to sort of raise the alarm bell and say, we can see a car crash ahead. If we don't do anything about it, if we just keep rolling in the same direction, we're going to hit the car crash. So what can we start to do now to avoid it, to put the brakes on, etc., and make sure that we don't end up in a real mess in a couple of weeks' time?
Yes.
So that's the kind of conversations I've been having over the last week or so. Yeah.
And I suppose, I think just exactly what you're saying there, we've been talking about being a finish line, because that's what you and I believe we should be gearing up for and keeping our energy for. But yes, the opposite to that is a car crash. And I think there's two things. We'll either come out of this, and some people will come out of this with post-traumatic stress, and some people will come out of it with post-traumatic growth. And that's your choice, because that's the car crash or the finish line. And for me, you need to decide now, because as you say, you need your energy. One thing I've noticed this week is obviously every day I'm constantly on calls, as most of the world are in this, video conferencing. And it's something that I do as part of my daily work routine anyway, because I have teams, not the same location. But when you're doing it all day and you don't have that chance in between, you have to bring a higher energy. I think Dominic spoke about this last week. You've got to bring some energy to it. Otherwise, it's just another set of people, another set of faces. And the other thing is, I don't think we have our ground rules ready yet. I don't think we've decided as teams, because everyone's learning and watching. I don't think we've decided what that looks like and what is the best way to be productive in it. And if that camera's on, we spoke to Phil Goes this week, and he had some great tips on managing virtual teams and being in that world. But it is, the human connection is very important. And I think in the situation that we're all in now at home, we've got to work out how to manage our teams. And managing them isn't the typical, seeing what they're doing, and that it's keeping them connected actually, and making sure that they are communicating and they do still understand what the vision is for the company. That 2020 vision, I think I claimed I had it, but clearly I didn't. But that will come back. This is a moment in time, and we don't know what that moment is, but we do know it'll end, and we know that the economy will bounce back. And we need to be ready. And I think, you know, that's exactly what you're saying. It will be a car crash if you as a team, as a company, as a leader aren't saying, we've got this. You know what, we've got this. This is hard and it's difficult for me and it's difficult for you, but you know, we've got this. And I think this week and maybe early next week, we need to be checking in. How is this WFH going for you? Because some people will say, actually, it's wonderful. You know, I'm sitting here and it's great and someone brings me a coffee. And other people will go, this is really difficult. I'm missing this and I'm missing that. Whatever they're missing, we need to be listening and thinking, we can fix that. You know, we've heard of virtual coffee mornings and quizzes and all this stuff going on, but it doesn't have to be, and I think we spoke about this earlier, it doesn't have to be a meeting. It can be an unscheduled conversation, which will keep you connecting. And that's what you want.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be communicating and making sure that we're all heading in the same direction, or else everyone's going to be doing it in a slightly different way. And that's not going to get our goals.
I think the other really important thing to tap into here is the need to reflect and adapt as we go along. You know, personally, I've noticed that because I don't have the little transitions in my day, you know, the little jump in a car and drive from meeting to meeting, or even if I was in London, get on the tube and go from meeting to meeting, because they're not in there, my day is more intensified. And it's taken me a week or so to think, do you know what? I'm hitting the end of a day and I'm absolutely burned out. I'm exhausted here. And start to think, okay, well, that's not sustainable. So what do I have to do then? And so restructuring my day is something that I'm doing next week. I'm going to actually plan the transitions in. And I've also started to realize that you've got to give more attention to the rest element. And you know, there's a little saying that I've been working to for a while, which is work hard, rest hard. In my 20s, I called it work hard, play hard. But I think when I had kids and I'd lost a couple of months worth of sleep, I started to realize that actually work hard, rest hard is probably more in line with what I need now. But I've got to be very deliberate about this, because if I'm not, I'll end up becoming exhausted, and I won't realize it until I get there, until I've actually hit the wall. The other element of this, I think, for leaders, which is particularly pertinent, is that the leaders I was chatting to this morning, they said, yeah, but my team need me. So if I take the time out for me, I start to feel guilty about it. And I mean, I've heard mums describing the same thing. You know, I'll make sure I give to everybody else and then I'll take care of myself last. And I'll feel guilty if I'm looking after me instead of looking after everybody else. But the point is, and the discussion we had this morning, was that if you don't give to yourself first, you can't serve your team properly. If you start to sort of degrade on a daily basis, and your energy is going to reduce, and your positivity will go with it, and your mood will go with it, you'll start to become a little bit grumpy. You won't engage with them quite as much. You won't give them the energy that they need. And actually, you know, you'll start to just slide off the end. And, you know, I'm a huge believer that most things work in spirals, and that momentum's critical. And that if we start losing it here, it starts to nosedive. So we've got to take care of mood and energy and positivity on a daily basis, or else we end up sliding off the end. So yeah, I think that awareness is critical.
Yes, and I think we have to figure a way to be creative in this. And once we're creative and we tap into that, I often say that word and people kind of ask me, well, you know, we sometimes think that you're born creative and you're one of these people that are creative, but it's a learned behavior. And actually, I was looking around on LinkedIn, and I know there's been a study with 1,500 CEOs around where they place creativity on their list of requirements in a role. And actually, it is incredibly high. I think it's number 3, and that made me kind of think about that. Actually, how do you become creative in this time? And I think it is looking at the way you've done it. And the way you've done it yesterday is not the way you're going to do it today, because actually everything has changed overnight. There's been a shift. And if we can tap into that, great things will happen. And when you say that, I think everybody sort of thinks that that's like you're going to, you know, take up art or whatever. But I mean, looking at the way we've been doing things in our business and our plans and our strategies, and kind of thinking, actually, if we were to do that today when we have a bit more time, what would that look like? How would we do it differently? And that's the sort of creativity they're looking for, something outside the box, which, you know, you bring to it. And that's an energy as well. When you think about it, that is like a positive energy. And I think talking about emotions, which, you know, when I hear you talk about energy, we know that energy is really important. You know, there are people that will suck the energy out of your business, and there's people who put it in, and you want to have those people who put it in, and it's all of our responsibility to keep putting it in. And that can be tough, you know, the tank goes down and we have to keep, but I think if we become creative and we start thinking, you know, quite often we're planning something or doing something, there's always somebody who says, we tried that. Yeah, no, we tried that, it didn't work. I mean, I've heard that so many times. And I always say, okay, but I'll give it a go. You know, I'll try it a different way. And I think that's the thing. What we've done in the past is not going to be what we're going to do in the future. And I think everyone is speaking about that at the moment, that technology is changing. And actually, if it is, and if at the end of this, we are going to be doing things more in this virtual world, creativity becomes very important. I mean, we're talking about all this AI, and, you know, the thing that people can bring that machine learning won't bring is creativity, is being creative in your role and finding ways. And I think that's the sort of learning skills and things that we should be trying to tap into at meetings. Is there a different way of doing that? And it might be someone who's thought, I used to think that, but I didn't want to say. Now's the time. Say it, do it. Do some exercises with your teams and see how they are creative in it. You know, it can be this silly thing. I don't know if you've ever done that with the 30 circles and you fill them as quickly as you can. And some people will, you know, some people will just fill them, you know, with smiley faces. And some people will create a caterpillar, or, you know, they'll figure a way of, you know, an apple or something. They'll figure a way of getting them all in and do it as quickly as they can, you know. And it's a bit of fun as well, but it is tapping into another way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the discussion that we had with Sarah on an episode a few episodes ago, and in my view, we really unlock creativity when we ask great questions.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the gifts that great leaders display. They have the ability to just ask great questions and then unlock the creativity of their team. And you know, so often I think, you know, leaders take it upon themselves to provide the solutions. They think it's their job to provide the solution. Whereas actually, by asking a great question, we engage the team in finding that solution and we unlock their creative power. The other thing that I found really interesting, knowing that energy is going to be absolutely critical and mood and positivity is going to be critical. I was sharing with a group last night what I call the 6 pillars of having a really strong mental game, really strong mindset. And vitality is one of those pillars. You know, just being able to take care of yourself, make sure you eat the right stuff and that you get fresh air and you drink lots of water and all that sort of stuff. You know, that's a critical pillar, because if we don't get that right, our energy is going to degrade. And if we get caught into the wrong pattern, we might feel tired, drink too much coffee, not sleep very well, wake up very groggy the next morning, drink even more coffee, not sleep very well the night after, and then we get ourselves into a pattern that's not good for us. Equally, if we go for, I'm absolutely knackered at the end of the day, so I'll have a couple of drinks. And so I wake up the next morning with a bit of a fuzzy head. Actually, we take ourselves down another pattern that's not very, very good for us. So making sure that we don't slip into those is critical. One of the other pillars is balance, getting real balance and making sure we do take the time out to regenerate ourselves, take the rest recovery time. So I think those are key. But of course, that's only the exhaustion bit. The boredom bit needs another solution altogether. And I think for a lot of people, they're losing meaning and purpose right now. And to be able to tap back in and know that the thing I'm doing right now is purposeful is absolutely critical for them. So there's an awful lot of, this is why there are 6 pillars in my view. We've got to get all of these 6 right in order to maintain constant sort of positivity, energy, make sure that we're thinking and feeling good things on a regular basis. And communicating. I think communication, whether it's with your teams or whether it's with the customers and the clients that you have, I think that's really something people have got to focus on, because
you know, saying, well, they're at home and, well, everyone's working from home. It seems like we've kind of all done that as if they're not working. We take out the W. So just,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, so, but they are working from home and they will like to have a call. And this is the time to self-learn, as we've said, whatever it is, you know, find something. Yesterday, actually, LinkedIn have a huge amount too of self-learning videos and things, and which is great. And I came across one yesterday we were talking about our salespeople and how they would then contact customers. We don't want to be selling at this time. That's not, we want to be helping them. And if there's anything we can do, processing data, whatever, helping them. But I came across this guy, Todd Dewitt, and he was talking about the elevator pitch, and which I thought, oh, I'm going to have a look at this, because we talk about this elevator pitch. And I thought, how can you do that if you're working from home? Then how you have that few minutes. And I think that feeds into what we were talking about before as well, which is networking. Networking isn't about how many people you meet. It's about how many people you can introduce to each other. And when you're doing that, you have this space and time where you're introducing them and you're telling, this is so-and-so, he works here, he does this, la la, the couple of tips. But anyway, Todd Dewitt has a very high energy video on it, and I hope that he's going to speak to us, because after watching it, I decided I would send him a message and connect with him. And I said, you know, maybe you'd like to come on to Pep Talks and help us. And he said, well, you know, I will be in the UK later this year. I'd love you to come and check out my website. And I said, oh, I'm feeling a bit like my elevator speech went to the basement. I said, you know, and I watched you, and you promised success, so that isn't good. And then he came back and he said, okay, let's have a chat, and yeah, be happy to help. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? That we have to find this idea of how you do that. And I mean, I'm only interested in how you do your elevator pitch when you're out of your sales environment, you haven't got your sales hat, and you haven't got something tangible to sell at the moment, but you want to be communicating and telling them where you're from and what you're doing. And I think we've got to get that right. The communication, everybody wants to stay in touch. As you say, that those people who are, you know, bored, they might be furloughed at the moment or whatever, but I think they still appreciate a call and to see how they are, or, you know, how their business is. And I think there's plenty of ways of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think isolation can become a real issue. Making sure that people have got a feeling of belonging to something is massive. You know, it's one of those fundamental human needs. This is why I think lots of people are sort of mourning the fact that their sport has disappeared out of their life. Yes. And it's not sport per se. I think it's that sense of belonging that they're missing.
Yes.
I think that's part of the real issue.
Well, sport and religion are they're communities that we belong to, and that we connect with people, and we forget that when they're taken away. And I see some, again, talk about being creative. We see, and I know you're speaking to some rugby players and things, but you see where they are putting games on apps, and we've seen with gyms. I don't know how many notifications I'm getting. You know, do yoga at home? Do you know? And that's people being creative. They can no longer go to their place, but they're bringing it to you. Yeah. And as businesses, there's something in there. There is something in there that we can be tapping into. We just need to find it.
Completely. I mean, when I talk to businesses about developing a really, really strong team, having something that people feel proud to belong to is central. Yes. Making sure that people feel that this is something special. What we do is special. Being part of this is special. You know, that's still a massive opportunity that businesses have got. And I think people will require that sense of belonging more and more and more. And if you can provide that for them, not only will they benefit as human beings, you know, I think it's just a great thing to do anyway, but that sense of loyalty and connection that they've got to your business will only grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the other challenges that you mentioned earlier that I just want to quickly touch upon was impatience. You know, because I think you're right, fear and shock were part of the last couple of weeks. Some of that might have subsided now, but there might be a growing sense of impatience. You know, I want normal again. I want to get back to where we were. You know, how long is this going to take? All that sort of stuff. Yeah. What are you seeing?
And I think towards the end of this week, I've seen a little bit of that where people want to know where the finish line is. And they're you know, any glimmer of hope is hope. And I think we have to be patient. Now, I'm not a patient person. Everybody knows that, talk about patience. I think when people talk about having patience, you when you think about it, you think of this long line of people in a bank and you're waiting. But we've all joined those queues of people now, whether it's getting to a supermarket or a pharmacy, whatever we're doing. We are having to be patient, and people are very quiet in it and reserved at the moment and doing it. But there's also this need for normality. And I think we have a new normal. And that's once we get past, I think, this, where we say, this is my new normal and how do I do it? And then I think we will get into a rhythm and a routine. But, I think the thing is, don't waste the time. And I struggle with this myself. I have to keep telling myself, this is what that internal chatter, we were talking to Sonia, and a lot of people said last weekend, they were having a huge amount of problems because your weekend isn't normal. Nothing is normal. And time out is that's what we live for, like, doing other things and, talking about our week or whatever. So I think what we need to get into is a rhythm of what we're going to do with this time. And as a business, what does that look like? I mean, you may be a business now where you've had to furlough some staff and things, but you want to keep them connected to you. Then it's totally out of your control. It's to protect. Everything is now to protect each other. And we talked about this last week too, about people being scared of each other almost. And I think as humans, we like to connect. And I think our emotions are within our control. As Sonia said, you have all these emotions at the moment, but we can turn them into a positive. But it's not going to be easy. We can say, actually, all these things we never got time to do, let's do them. Let's have a project driven where we can, get it on top of some things or make a plan. And I think knowing that the economy has not, it will take a hit by the end of this, but actually it's not like a recession. It's not devastating at the end of this. It will be busy, and we need to be ready, and we need to be energized, and we need to come out with a strong team. And that's up to us. That is in our control, keeping that energy and keeping that negative chatter inside, and reading things other than, it's important to keep on top of what's happening in COVID-19. Of course it is. But also using the time to take that training that's been offered free, or to, maybe there's something in one of the people. We still have quite a few people that are signed up to talk to us. And if there is somebody in that, I've had several messages this week, and empathy, actually somebody asked me about empathy and that emotional intelligence that we hear. It's out there. This is important to be emotionally intelligent. We need to be now more than ever. And the empathy element of it is understanding that everyone feels the same. Everybody is kind of scared and in the same boat, and it's okay. It is okay. And it isn't forever.
Yeah, absolutely. That people talk about the grief response that a lot of people have had.
Yes.
And when you actually kind of dig into it, what are they grieving? What have they lost? Certainty. They're probably grieving a loss of certainty. Probably grieving the loss of normality. But you're right. The way to almost get to grips with this is to say, okay, I can accept this is a new normal. Let's explore it a little bit. I don't have to wish this away. I don't have to hope that it will go away in minutes and I can get back to the old. I can start to explore the new and accept this is my new normal. And actually kind of maybe embrace some of the uncertainty. It's that change of perspective between, viewing something as a threat and viewing it as an adventure.
Yes.
Maybe I could just get into the adventure of this. I think there's an awful lot of mental emotional challenges around people at the moment. And the other one I heard last night on a session that I delivered was somebody saying they're starting to feel trapped because they can't physically get out. And actually, again, if you kind of dig into trapped, usually trapped is when we feel like we've lost our choice. Yes. But actually, if we start to tap in and think, no, I haven't lost my choice. Maybe I can't go out and I'd like to, but that's only one dimension of my enormous choice. I've got tons of choice. And maybe one of them is, how can I find a creative way to ... And that's within my choice too.
Yes, and I think actually Tony Robbins has a really good session on loss actually, and that is again in your control, and what are you losing, and like if and I think that's your choices. And, thinking of something as a loss has that negative, but actually you haven't lost it. If you can do it in a different way, you haven't actually lost it. So, and for this period of time, yes, it's better to do it. We all prefer to go to the gym than try and do it at home. I mean, I think now that is the thing, where you're trying to work from home, your gym is home, your entertainment. And I think that's, as you say, that's habits, and we need to be careful and not let bad habits that will seep into it happen.
That's right. Because if we get ourselves wrapped up in that, it soon becomes resentment and becomes anger. I think this is not fair. Why is this happening to me? And that takes us down probably a mental emotional path that's not got a good destination. There's not a very good end to that path. Whereas actually flipping our thoughts and feelings into, this is something new. I could explore this. This might be a bit of an adventure. Takes us down in a completely different path.
Yeah, I think it's actually, it's the lockdown. It's actually the language around it that makes us have that connection with it in that way. Maybe grounded's a better word. I don't think we're all grounded, because at least grounded, you sort of feel that that's not as lockdown. I suppose we have got to remember the meaning of that in our head, and that is normally in pretty dire circumstances. In prisons we hear about lockdowns and things. So maybe it is just that language. So maybe we should stop calling it lockdown and say we're all grounded together until further notice, and hope that we can maybe. But this is a moment in history, and I think this is whatever we do with it now is up to us. Actually, it's a chapter that we have to write, and I think as businesses, which is what we represent, and business leaders and our own businesses that we're attached to, I think we're trying incredibly hard. And I hope, I definitely felt this week that all the work we've done over the last few weeks, everybody is in a good place. I hope they are. And we just have to now start Monday again with that energy, thinking this week is going to be different, and what do we do? And normally, I think for the couple of weeks that are coming, they're an Easter break, which was always a time for travel and family and doing things and getting together. And that really has, that's not going to happen this time. So there are lots of inventive and creative ways we can get around that. We'll all be having dinner. Zoom will be awash with people having connections with people. So whatever it is, I think, and certainly on a personal note, if anyone needed help with any of this virtual conferencing or whatever, more than happy to help. Some of us have been around it a bit longer and kind of understand what it feels like. So definitely happy to help, and I know you are too.
Absolutely, yeah. I think as a message, yes, we are both very, very, very happy to help, and come find us and drop us a line. Just before we tie up today, who have we got next week?
So, well, I think you should introduce the first one, Justin.
Yes, indeed. So Justin Hughes is joining us. He's a former Red Arrows team leader. He was also a squadron leader in the Royal Air Force. I know that you came across Justin when he spoke at a conference that we delivered just over 2 years ago, talking about how you lead teams into uncertainty, but also make decisions with imperfect, ambiguous information, which, these could be high-risk decisions as well, critical decisions. So he's going to share an awful lot with us on how you get through those sorts of challenges and how you lead teams through those sorts of challenges.
Yes. And Justin, I think Justin will talk about, after every, the Red Arrows would come back together after every flight, and it was a non-judgmental post-mortem of what had gone on. So it didn't matter if you did something wrong, it would be called out, but it wasn't about you. It was just about that team and the difference you can make and whatever. And I think that's, this is a time for us to look back and say, that probably didn't work. Let's do it a different way. And then we have Phil Gold, who is one of the LinkedIn resources. And Phil is, he works very closely with huge companies, talking about managing people in the virtual world. and really just around that trust element and finding a way of doing it. And he himself, where normally he's working with large companies who are set up to work from home, but he has some practical information for us on that. And he also mentions the very valid point that this is not just working from home, this is now trying to homeschool and do all those other things while working from home. So he has some good tips, and actually that ran a little bit longer because we did feel it was important. It's a lot of information out there on this, and actually you get to hear from someone who trains that every week. And then we have so many more people signed up, so this is like phenomenal actually. Sarah will come back and do another session, as will Dominic and Sonia, because people are requesting that, and that's fantastic. And they have so much more to give. Actually, we only touch, when we're doing this, we ask them we only have a few minutes, but they are going to come back. So we have some really good follow-ups as well. And if there's anything else, we'd love to hear what you'd like us to talk about, but we can cover anything really. We have such a bank of people willing to give up their time. And obviously Simon has a huge amount of expertise in this as well. So if we need to get anything or find anything, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So folks, have a fantastic weekend. We will see you next week for another episode of Pep Talks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.